Hey,
Hey,
what's up?
Randy LeBoeuf, what's up, man? How
How's
are
it?
you? We're back.
I'm good.
If you don't know who Randy LeBoeuf is, he's worked alongside me for, I don't know, coming up on 10 years now.
10 years.
And, started out as my engineer and has definitely grown into his own producer. And in the past couple of years, have made some awesome records in the hardcore metal world. And now people confuse his records for mine and say, "Hey, man, I want to record with you because this record sounds really good." I go, "Actually, that was Randy, so fuck me, I guess." But
Fuck.
you're killing it. You're one of my best friends, and we have been in deep conversation about everything that's going on since the George Floyd murder, and it's brought in to the surface a lot of personal stuff. Some of it which is very uncomfortable to talk about and very heavy, and you know you being willing to come on here and share some of the stories with your family, I think is it takes a lot of balls, man. So I want to thank you, and I really appreciate you being
Hey,
here.
I'm happy to be here.
So we could talk. Let's save some music shit for the end, man. I
Yeah,
just kind of want to get right into it, if that's cool.
plenty
You know,
to cover. Yeah.
yeah. So the reason why I wanted to bring you on is, you're a guy who was born in New Orleans, who grew up there and then
Hours
moved.
south of New Orleans, which makes it even a little bit more like not even in the city, big city of New Orleans, but a town an hour south, which is even closer to the swamp, less of a melting pot type of city, you know,
Sure.
which
I
is
mean,
hard to say. But that's not
yeah.
like how New Orleans is a melting pot or any other big city is. I didn't even have that where I was from until I got out. But
Yeah. And then, so you grew up there and then you moved. When did you move? You moved to Boston first, right?
I went to college in Boston. So by the time I was literally 18 years old, 18, right before 19 years old, I moved out, went to college in Boston. And that was like the first time I've ever, moved out of home, out of the state. Before then, I might have gone on vacations to other states, but never to any like actual big city
Right.
other than being in New Orleans. So that was definitely like the first like eye-opening thing, the first escape, the first time I can sit on a subway train and literally like, just see what an actual melting pot city is, just like race to race next to each other on a train, Muslim, black, Asian.
Sure. And you know, your upbringing in New Orleans, I mean, I don't want to. It's hard for me to say this, but I think your family and some of the ideals that they have are kind of deeply embedded in a bit more of a racist culture down there, deep in the south of New Orleans.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, 100%.
and so how you're the person that you are, you extremely disagree with everything that's happening right now, everything that's happened to the black community. And, it's stuff we've talked about over and over again, but you have a family of people that you have to deal with. I mean, these are relatives, loved ones, parents,
Yes.
what, like, where are you with this? I mean, we've talked about, you know, we've talked about your progression from maybe not understanding it when you were young to then not knowing how to deal with it to now being now, because of a personal belief, being forced to actively confront your family. And I'd love to get some insight because I think this is a hard conversation that a lot of white kids are going to have with their parents, grandparents, uncles and stuff, and you're in the middle of figuring out how to deal with it too. So it's like anything you could talk about on this issue is like, I'm be really interested to hear about it.
Absolutely. I mean, even just to start, that video of like the young girl, like selfie video of the girl arguing with their parents about racism and like everything that's going on. If you've ever watched that video, the things that her parents are saying back to her are just like things I feel like I've heard my entire childhood and upbringing. But I mean, and this isn't about calling out my family and being like, you're all racist, blah blah blah. Like, that's just as bad as like being now pointing the finger just to be active and being against it. It's like I still want to be able to hear out the other side. But what's crazy to me is that I know the other side being some people in my family, it's like I'm not going to get a valid argument. So it's like it's hard to like it's been hard to figure out how to approach most of them because I can't just like call up my uncle and be like, hey, remember that time you did this? What the hell's wrong with you? I live here now. I visit home 2 to 3 times a year. And when I do visit home, that's when I'm subject to it, whether it's in my immediate family, friends, extended family. And, ever since I moved to Boston and I was subject, like realized that like how much prejudice and racism I was subject to when I was younger. When I go back now, I'm way more outspoken about it. But even then, I still deal with arguments that are stubborn, that are just like, oh, I'm not racist. I have black friends. I was taught everything I know in my work field by a black man. But it's like, but what was that thing you just said? And then from there, just the culture in which I grew up in. I'm south of New Orleans, and that's literally Cajun country. Cajun is its own ethnicity, its own culture. And there's things within that culture that are literally racist. Like, I mean, like there's terms of endearment. I'm not going to say it, but there's literally, if you Google Cajun self-pride term, a term that Cajuns will refer to themselves as, that is literally stems from a racist word. And you'll see restaurants that have the name in it. Like you can't, it's so backwards that it's like, the more I see it every year it passes, I obviously feel stronger about it. And it's especially now I'm like, I'm angry about what's going on. I'm also ashamed about how I was brought up and how could I have been introduced to any of this information? Like, how could I have been informed of injustices, the same way? No one in my family is going to tell me, they're going to watch a football game and say bad things about the players or about Obama, like being Muslim. Like, I'll never vote for a man with a Muslim name. Like, I've heard it all. And so all I can do going forward now is challenge it to speak up. But from there, it's like, how aggressive can I be? Because it's kind of like being aggressive and stubborn at somebody who's already inherently stubborn and won't change their ways. So what's been a battle for me is like approaching them in a way that's like, hey, like, like asking them like, hey, why do you really feel this way? Versus being like, what's wrong with you? You're just, I don't know, like pointing the finger versus trying to actually ask them something that would make them think about how they feel about something.
Sure. I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
A lot of like what we've discussed on this, and yesterday we got really deep into like communication and how it breaks down and how, approaching people who have these embedded beliefs can be super polarizing, and it can even just make things worse sometimes. And it's honestly a difficult subject to navigate. I mean, I know we've talked about a bunch, and I've talked about a lot of people. It's like we're like looking for answers now on how to have these conversations with people. It's like, if you love your parents, you don't want to cut them out of your life, but you need to make them understand that, hey, you grew up in a culture that's racist, and the things that were okay to you are not okay to the rest of the world. And the Black community has made a very clear, defined stance that this is not tolerated, and everybody has educated themselves to the point now where I feel like we've learned, yeah, we cannot, be complacent and allow things like this to happen. And, yeah. I don't have answers for you, but I know that this struggle is probably common right now, especially with people who come from these types of neighborhoods or these types of cities or, these states in the country or anywhere in the world. It's like this embedded racism stuff is so prevalent. And, I know you've struggled with not addressing it versus addressing it. And I think, what we had talked about a little bit was, trying to open them up to new ways of thinking, trying to put stuff in front of them and explaining why these little subtle layers of racism in terms of endearment and things like that, aren't acceptable. But, have you made progress with anybody in your family? Like, have you had any productive conversations?
A few. And by a few, I mean like less than a handful. And has there been more than a handful? maybe twice as much. Because there's always, it's hard because I almost have a disconnect being here and not home, not around them every day, to where I guarantee you, if I was around my family, parents, anyone in my family all day, and I would hear these things, I'd be able to actively speak out, but I can't call and be like, hey, what have you been talking about lately? How have you been, so that's what makes it difficult for me. But in conversation, I'm very open about what's going on now. And when I try to talk to my parents about it, they will kind of like side like, oh yeah, the looting's crazy. Not like, yeah, it's messed up what's happening. Like there's truly a problem with like injustice to Black people. Like they aren't there. I think there's like a uncomfortableness where they don't want to admit that because it puts them in the wrong, like you can't, they don't want it to reflect bad on their character, when it's just like, I can acknowledge now that it reflects bad on my character being brought up in it and not speaking out against it. I had like friends who were Black that anyone would have thought it would be okay to make jokes in front of them. Like it's not, and I've reached out to those people as well as my family, and that's what it's about: reconnecting, acknowledging what has happened, and going forward that things need to be different, and that literally we need to be doing things better. So from there, but I can't call up my grandma and be like, hey, Mama, that term you use every now and then, that little term of endearment, do you know where it comes from? I've said that to another family member just talking about it, and they'd be like, oh no, I never thought about that. And then it just stops. I'm like, yeah, don't you think it's wrong? Don't you think it needs to stop? It's just like there's always just like a cutoff where it's like it's either it's too much, they're uncomfortable, and then it stops. But I won't stop, and that's all I can do is just keep pushing it. But
yeah, I think unfortunately some of this work is gonna be long term with people that, especially people that you care about, and you can't just write your entire family off. I mean, you can, but it's such a emotional the turmoil that would happen on the inside, and you want to change people. You don't want to alienate people and polarize people. You do want to change them because it's your family and you love them. So it's like, it's like the best that I feel like we can do now is to just stay on people and not let up and correct them every time you hear it. And everybody wants the world to just be perfect now.
Absolutely.
But I think the sad truth of it is undoing a lot of this stuff is going to take longer than anybody really wants. I mean, there will be changes and some things will happen quicker than the others, and police are getting arrested, and there's talks about this defunding police, and there's talks about policy change and all this stuff. And there's going to be short-term changes, which is awesome. But there's this type of long-term shit that is going to take people like you to stay on and just be the person that you are and convey that, that message in a conversation with them the best way you can. So it's a struggle forever, man. And I feel, it pains me to know you and how caring of a guy you are, that you have to deal with this in a home situation. So it's tough.
I'm literally the only, like, other than Fox News, my mom and dad wouldn't know what's going on. They don't have, not even just them, other people in my family, grandparents. I'm sure some of my cousins do, but aunts and uncles, there's only a few that are on Facebook, and those are the ones that I'll see some of them share some things that are false information, not supporting the movement, very much opposite of it. And my immediate family only relies on major news sources, where it's like, if they had Twitter and they can literally just see the video of what's happening real time, I feel like they would see that. But I've tried to share that with them, and my mom literally has said, like, I can't watch this. It's like, this is happening. People are seeing this without a choice, just stuff like that, where it's just, I just try to, I don't ever want to think I'm like trying to tiptoe around the issue, but I have to like carefully relay that information to them so that they can like absorb it in the right way. Like, please watch this, like I've literally screen recorded the introduction to this charity that you did and sent it to my parents and be like, hey, please watch this. I know you're not going to go to the website, but check this video out. It's 8 minutes long. He kind of covers the topic of what's going on, because I told him about this charity even. And there was no like, oh, that's amazing. They're like, oh, okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
I'm just gonna keep trying. Like it's an important issue, and I'm just gonna. It's kind of just like I said earlier. I can't fight it with being stubborn back at them because they never take that well. That's
it's figuring out these right ways to communicate in these difficult situations. You know, it's not just a talking point. Oh, we're having hard conversations. Like they're hard. No, this is hard. You know, and I know that navigating this for fucking the years to come with you is going to be difficult. And yeah, man, I really thank you for sharing this because I feel like a lot of people are in this place, and you know, just knowing that other people are trying to do the same thing and trying to, you know, create positive change like you are, I think, you know, could potentially be helpful or therapeutic, you know, because this isn't going to stop for people all over the country and the world for a while. This issue that, you know, you brought to light. So thank you for doing this. This was fucking awesome, man.
Can we get a quick 10-second guest spot from EQ?
Yeah, please.
I'm waking her up. Everybody donate.
Oh, there she is. This is our studio dog, Randy's dog. This is EQ. If you've recorded with us or have crossed paths with me or Randy, you're probably well aware of this dog. She's the best dog in the world. Donate $10 so EQ will be happy, and also support the Black Lives Matter movement. Randy, let's do your giveaway. Thank you for sharing all of this and your amazing dog.
Yes.
So here's a Randy LeBoeuf producer bundle. A tremendous amount of stuff that you've done in the past year or two. We've got how many test presses? 4 test presses?
Four and 1 vinyl, yeah.
No One Goes to Heaven by Left Behind, Nomad by Kubican, Unity, Mad Boy, Jay was on yesterday, and Hard to Kill from I Am, plus a bonus Kubican vinyl. You should watch Matt's, man. Honeycutt killed it yesterday. He's a voice of his. Yeah. And then also, I feel like, you know, we didn't get to talk about Tradewin, but Randy's also in a band with members of Straight from the Path and Stick to Your Guns and Structures called Tradewin. So if you're into like artsy indie rock stuff, I guess I'll call it. It's a very cool band, and they're giving away a test press of You Make Everything Disappear, which is a record that I had the pleasure of working on too, and is a very cool record and a very talented group of musicians. So check out Tradewin and follow Randy and everything that he does in his career. I love you, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Randy LeBoeuf, my man. Take some balls to address that kind of stuff with your family right now. I'm glad he's doing that. Soundrink.live, a $10 charitable donation. Win the Randy LeBoeuf test press bundle. Win a Tradewin test press and 100 other prizes. Donate $10. Write what you want. We're going to randomly pick winners, and you get a copy, and you get whatever you put down. All right. I am taking a 2-minute break, and then I will be back with Gabe the Pigeon.